Today we're going to piss everyone off on this podcast.
Vegans 1, hunters 0.
Vegans, you win.
Elk 1, Rich 0.
No animals were hurt in the making of this podcast. Well, maybe one was technically.
I'm going to go unfettered through this forest.
I didn't shoot them.
Cuter the critter, sweeter the meat.
These guys are sick.
Like, dude, that was nasty.
I'm sorry, we failed you. Rolling. All right, Angelo went to career day with...
Well, I want to get back to accessories after that, but yeah, I heard all about it from a 12-year-old's point of view. But how was it? They put you up there for a career day. What
did they think? I want to know. I want to know what Gus thought. I want to know what Coco thought because their classes were vastly different.
Oh, okay, Gus is a hard read, so I'll give you that one
like,
second.
Whatever.
Well, he's just like, yeah, you can't get a rise out of him.
I thought, I think. I was just telling them, I think that the problem in the morning was that it was 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like, I didn't want to be there that early either. I'm sure they didn't want to be there.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew going in the morning classes were going to be different than the afternoon classes. The morning classes were smaller, too. Yeah. So what did they say? Yeah, I don't know.
Gus was playing. Coco thinks she asked too many questions, but she told me some other ones, and she sounded like there were some bangers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
She asked too many questions.
She said she asked too many questions, but my favorite one, she's like, yeah, I asked him, but she asked you like the gnarliest call you've ever been on.
What's the most disturbing thing you've ever seen?
In class? Nice.
Yeah. And I won't answer. The teacher goes, yeah, I don't think we should answer that. And then another girl in her class asked, she goes, how much money do you make?
Straight up.
Okay, yeah.
Did you answer these? Like,
I mean, yeah.
Other than that one?
Because no. Then
The
hers.
disturbing
Yeah.
one?
Like, I was caught off guard by the how much money do you make because I was like, usually don't
those
ask
kids need
people
to-
that, but like,
kids need to
but it's
know.
a career class, so I was like,
Heck
I
yeah.
told him, I said, this is how much I made when I started, and then this is how much you would make now if you started because it's so much more, and then I don't know exactly the dollar amount, but this is kind of how much I make, and I explained to them like the merit raise, like every year if you're good, you get a bigger raise, and then the more certifications you get, the more money you make, and so I kind of explained all that. So yeah, in a rough roundabout way,
That's
I kind of
not fair.
explained. What?
Shouldn't everybody get a raise?
I think so.
Hey, well, I think we get a cost of living raise anyways.
Kidding. I'm kidding. Kidding.
I know.
Piss everyone off. Today we're going to piss everyone off on this
Oh,
podcast.
dude, we got a couple Instagram posts
Yeah,
we should
do.
get into. I sent you guys that one because I thought it was hilarious.
So good.
But the one what stuck with, just so you know, you dropped some wisdom bombs.
Oh, really?
They were just astonished that the smoke inhalation was just as dangerous as the fire.
Oh yeah, really?
That one really stuck with them.
Yeah, that because she asked a pretty tough question that I didn't really have an answer for until I came back to it and I figured it out. So she asked me, she goes, what if I'm in my room and there's a fire and I'm like, I'm on the top floor and let's just say it's just one room. And I go, well, then you would probably try to, one of the girls like, oh, you would throw all your stuff out your window and jump on. I go, yeah, you would do that. Like I said, if you break a leg jumping from the third story, second story, whatever, better than dying in a fire. And they all understood that. And then Coco's like, well, what if there is no window? I'm like, so what are you in the attic? She's like, yeah, what if I'm in the attic and there's a fire? And I was like, okay.
There's always some type of vent.
I go, well, don't spend that much time in the attic for one. And then I started to explain. I was like, oh, well, if there was a fire, there would be all the smoke would end up going to the attic, and you would get out of the attic before the fire would really grow enough to where there was no exit from the attic. And then I said, if there wasn't, I go, you just bang on the roof, I guess, and just hope we would come in
but
there.
like I said, there's a vent always in
Yeah,
an attic.
it vents a little bit, yeah. I told, because, no, it just wouldn't, unless the fire there was one attic access and the fire built up right underneath there, that would be the only option that you would never be able to get out of it.
Yeah.
But even if you did...
I felt your pain though, dude, because then they started they kept on going down hypothetical.
Oh,
wasn't it?
yeah, we went through the
Then
what
they
ifs
find
a
some
lot.
weakness and they're
Yes.
just in.
Yeah, we went down the what ifs a lot. And
This is a career class and they're asking fire safety stuff.
yeah, one of the girls asked, and this one was probably my favorite question. One of the girls asked, she goes, is your chief really mean like Major Pain? I go, no, my chief is like Major Pain. Does he yell at you like Major Pain? I go, I'm glad you know what Major Pain is, but no. He's not like Major Pain. Ben, he's
Benton
not.
is not major
Not
pain
major
for
pain.
sure.
Well, that's cool,
Had
man.
some
That's
couple,
a good
couple
public
like that
service.
would have been major pain, but
Yeah, oh yeah.
major pain.
No,
in
it
the
was actually really fun. And a couple of the class, she wanted me to talk about CrossFit a little bit, but I mostly focused on the fire stuff, and then like I kind of touched on CrossFit a little bit, and a lot of them just
There's
gave me,
no
like,
career there, so
They're like, what? Yeah, they're like, the fire stuff's way more important because like it's a career that really any of them could choose, and I think she actually liked this part that I explained how I dropped out of college to become a fireman, and like she said that her husband did the same thing to be a paramedic. And so she was like, we talked about that college isn't really for everybody. And so I think it was cool.
Yeah, and you did a different set of
exactly. And I said, like, obviously, the reason I didn't go back is because I had to go to the fire academy and then a year of medical school. Like, there was a lot of schooling after that. And then I explained also that if you work at the city and you want to go to college, they'll pay for your college courses. Yeah. So if I decided I didn't want to be in the fire department anymore, I could stay there for a couple of years, get a degree, and move on. Yeah. And I was like, it's kind of like the military. And yeah, it was actually really good.
That's good too, because it blows kids' minds open. You know, I mean, when Gus learned he didn't have to go to college, you know, like he's still at that age where he's like convinced he's going to play in the NFL. You know? But like he's going to play college football in the NFL.
As he should.
But he was like, totally. And he was like, well, when I told him that it wasn't, you know, required, he was, oh, really? Like, you know, what else could you do? Oh, dude, you could start a career. Like a lot of people are hugely successful.
A lot of different things.
Well, that's cool, man. Yeah, they had a blast with it. But yeah, the hypotheticals in my house were like, okay, well, smoke inhalation is more dangerous, but like, what if the floor's on fire? And I'm like, dude, you just gotta like think on your feet. Like, if you can't, you don't have a roadmap. Like,
basic, common sense.
You get low and get the hell away from the fire.
Yeah, I realized that talking to middle schoolers is the hardest for me. Like elementary school kids or preschool kids are like,
you just wow them.
Yeah, babies and kids. Like you show up in a uniform, they're already like, you know, they think it's so cool. And then high school kids, you can talk to them like they're adults. Like, you know, like some of the jokes I make and stuff kind of went over the middle schoolers' heads because it just doesn't make sense yet. Yeah. Like the real world, like career jokes don't really make sense. And then middle schoolers are right in that
you have a pretty middle school sense of humor.
I know. Are right in that middle. They're right in that middle zone where like you can't talk to them like they're adults. They're young adults, and depending on the grade, like 5th grade is so different than 8th grade.
Oh yeah,
5th grade
way
is like
different.
They're like, those are elementary school kids. 8th grade is like pretty much high school. So like you almost have to like change your tone of voice based on the group because she had all kinds of grades in it.
Welcome to my like football coaching experience.
It's
wild.
It is crazy.
Some kids are like crazy literal and like, no, this is exactly what you need to do, but then they can't think on their feet. Like, well, what if that guy moves over there? Well, he's still gonna block him, you know?
Me and Billings went and spoke to Lakeland's class last year about bison.
Oh, cool.
And it was Matt was just like frozen.
Oh yeah.
Where it's just the kids, the questions we got with that were great.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You know, like man.
And for me, speaking to kids is a lot easier, and it takes me a second, but I can open up really quickly because kids are, you know, they don't.
You can feel their energy, and as soon as you see something that they don't care, all they care about is like being wild.
Yeah, especially when they were asking all the hypothetical questions, it was like that was way more fun than just like standing up there and showing them a video and talking about it.
Right.
What was the other one? The other one Gus thought was really funny was when you talked about if there's somebody who you have to get out who's really overweight.
Yeah, they love that question. They love that question. They're like, so what if someone's really fat and you have to get them out?
Webbing.
I go, yeah.
And
they're like,
on them and drag them out.
Because they, you know, she was talking about how I do CrossFit and saying that I'm pretty strong, I guess. And they were like, they're like, well, do you need help getting people? I go, yeah, some people are really big and you need help. And I'm like, they're like, what if they're so big you can't carry them? I was like, you get more people. You just get more people, and you get tools and you drag them out. Like sometimes it's not pretty.
Yeah.
And then some kid said, has anyone ever died on your watch? Yeah. I go, yeah,
plenty. Too many to count.
I go, yeah, plenty of people. And they're like, oh my. And then I think either Coco or one of my friends asked, they go, how many people die? How many people have you seen die or something? I go, I don't know, a lot of people. I go, probably one person a week or something. And then they're like, you know, they were freaking out. They go, one person a week in our city? And they were freaking out. Yeah. Like, people die all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, I think and this is a weird right turn, but like, I think that's why I know that there's other negative effects, but like, I think it's also a very healthy relationship with like death that first responders have.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because it's there, just people don't have access to it.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, that was one of the things that matured me the quickest was being on the fire department. You just see life and death. Yep. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think
because you take the average person, it's like maybe you were at your grandfather's.
Hospice.
But you probably didn't even see it.
Yeah, true. It is different. Like, and I think this is for another podcast, but I do think like I would think that some people, I truly believe that there are some people who are pretty much born the way that they are more subject to like PTSD or something similar to that. And I feel like there are people who are not, that it's just like the way you process stuff. It's just like the way people process different emotions. Like, I don't think, I mean, I could be talking too early, but like stuff doesn't really like come back up for me and bother me. I mean, you know, it could change.
You almost block it out. Like, honestly, I don't now. I mean,
some of the stuff I don't remember.
It's been 10 years since I've done it, but there's I remember some major things, but some things like the very basic.
Like, you'd have to bring it up. You'd have to talk to you guys.
Yeah, as soon as you start talking about it, you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
I think that, or maybe the opposite is like some people deal with it so well that at some point you realize, wow, I'm actually like so callous that am I still human?
Yeah.
You're
almost dead.
You ever talked to Matt about that, Matt Chan? Him and Shree are kind of doing like workshops for friends and whatnot, because his story was basically like they had a dude who was, I don't know exactly what had happened to him, but they were pumping his chest.
Yeah.
And they had obviously left the firehouse in a hurry. And at some point, Matt was just like, he said he had this moment. He was like, oh no. He said, oh shit. And the guy was like, what? And he's like, did you turn the oven off?
Yeah.
Like it had nothing to do with the dead man that they were pumping on his chest.
That happens
you know what I mean?
all the time.
All the time, yeah.
All the time that happens.
And he was like, maybe I should connect with these feelings a little bit.
Yeah, because like, and I mean, I'm sure it was the same for you. It's like most of the guys deal with it similarly. Where like we come back and we make jokes about it and we like talk about it. And, like
you're almost like, this is messed up.
It's messed up,
but that's
it's
how some guys process it.
It's a pretty good coping.
I remember when I
too.
first got there and it was like that. When we came back, and I'm like, these guys are sick.
Yeah.
And then 6 months in, you're doing the same thing because that's just what
you
got.
Dude, that was nasty.
Yeah. You're just like, that's how you do it.
Yeah, you build that callus.
Same but different as like when you come back from a hunt and your buddies just give you a hard time about it, just to, like if you didn't get an animal. Is that too soon?
I feel like
is
that
a good transition
to everyone here and on the internet? I'm sorry, we failed you.
I was gonna say
no animals were hurt in the making, or
vegans 1, hunters 0.
Yeah, no animals were hurt in the making of this podcast. Well, maybe one was technically.
For those who have no idea what we're talking about, Rich just got back from an elk hunt in Colorado. Beautiful.
We did. All
right, so maybe that's actually the better place to start. Is there such a thing as an unsuccessful hunt? Not just in the fact like I didn't harvest anything, but
man, I would. There's like. We talked about it. We joke about it. There's like stages of grief, Like I don't know all the stages of grief,
7?
but there's like,
5 or 7.
Like we were dealing with the stages of grief the night we came back from camp and just kind of talking about those things. And the next day, I'm like, all right, how can we? What are the positives that came out of the trip? Like Ben's never been in the woods for that long. He's never hunted. Bird has never hunted elk. So we got 2 new hunters out there. Me, Scott, and Ben spent a lot of time together. Learned, I knew Scott would go any and everywhere that I asked him to ever. Learned Ben will too.
Found Ben's limits?
Yeah, no, never found his limits. That's what's good, And Bird too. Bird was right there with us in several of the hunts or several of the, different things that we did. So there was a lot of positives and, being out in nature, being out in those experiences. You learn a lot about yourself and, we tried and did and, I learned a lot more probably this hunt, Scott, I don't think, with elk behavior and actually being in elk and having some like close encounters. I feel like we learned a lot more, maybe to try some different things for sure. But
yeah, especially day 2, Sunday of the hunt was the first time we've ever gotten to do that.
Yeah.
Scott said it was like, was it day 2 you were talking about? I said it was the best day other than the day you killed the elk.
I mean, we had in the I'll back up. We'll back up. We'll come to day 2.
Before we do that, we pulled up the 5 stages of grief.
Okay.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So you said you got to acceptance.
I don't know if I got quite
I
to
would say I'm
acceptance.
still at bargaining.
Yeah, Scott's at bargaining. Which honestly, I'm still at bargaining. I'm like, 1 minute
to go back.
Yeah, we could go back. We have till the 30th. The problem is I can't leave my kids. I can't leave Hillary for another couple days. So I'd actually talked Hillary into going with the kids, us hunting 2 or 3 days, and then hanging at the cabin for 2 or 3 days. The problem is the kids have school.
When's fall break?
Scott was literally Googling. Scott was literally Googling like truancy laws. Like, but if they're gone for 5 days, what are they going to do?
Yeah. So
I still am not convinced that we can't figure this out.
I'm not convinced we can't. I'm not taking it off the table. The problem is when we talked about doing it is next weekend, like Thursday. We'd basically have Friday, Saturday to hunt.
Why do you only have till the 30th? Is that when your tag?
My tag is good to archery, over-the-counter archery. So we have until Saturday. We have train with Rich next weekend.
What comes after bargaining, just so I can recognize it when it happens?
Depression.
Yeah, got it. Okay, thanks.
The only thing that is saving me right now
definitely come
is that I have 2 more hunts.
Yeah.
We have a hunt in October. We're going to go to Hell's Canyon. I don't know if we're allowed to say who we're going with, but we're going to Idaho for that. That's a rifle hunt. I really want to kill one with a bow. And then we have another rifle hunt with a cow at the same
Idaho's
place we're going.
Belk, or
Belk? Yeah.
Bull elk.
Bull elk, yeah. Yeah,
Otherwise
so,
known as Belk.
I mean, we learned a ton. The problem was it was so early. We only had probably one day where they were like screaming, kind of like they're starting pre-rut-ish maybe. It was really warm. We sat, man, that's the hard part is like everybody always wants to say that, oh, you guys don't sit enough, you don't blah, blah, blah. But that's coming from whitetail hunters from here.
Yeah.
We sat more, I would say, than any trip we've ever sat and had zero luck on the times we sat. The only time we saw elk, we were glassing or moving. And so
it's way different. Like where like the way you're hunting and the way that like I hunt is that like for whitetail is I work on a piece of property for most of the year, you know, and that's why
here's the deal is like we had cameras up at these wallows and what sucks is the one morning
you did sit them,
the best day we had with elk was a day an elk came to that wallow.
Day after.
No, it was a day of.
No, it was Monday the elk came, and Sunday was the day they bugled.
Oh, okay. All right. But you don't know that. I mean,
no,
we were in them. And we had one on that. We had one on Sunday, too. We had that one in the bottom of the valley that was bugling.
Yeah.
So it's
so let's zoom out.
It all.
Zoom
Yeah,
out. So it was public land, private land?
Private land. There's a mix. We were on some public land in the mix of it, but mostly private. Not high fence, not anything like that. Just a piece of private land that we can hunt.
Travel through.
They could travel through. Less pressure, so definitely good. Had some cameras up at some wallows to earlier in the season to know kind of and try to pattern them. We were trying to hunt them a little bit. It's more similar to whitetail. So we had that going for us. The problem was where we go. So there's a road. A lot of the property is up behind the cabin, and then there's a lot of property in front of the cabin. And so when we went elk hunting, cow elk hunting rifle last November.
This is the same spot.
Same spot, but we hunted the west side of the property. We didn't hunt any of the east side of the property. So we didn't have eyes on, feet on, learn the east side of the property. We knew the west side pretty well, I would say. I think we hunted that correctly.
How big is the private property?
5,000 acres.
Oh, wow.
And so, I mean, it's that connects to another couple thousand public land.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
Yeah.
It's vast.
I was thinking like 500. I was thinking like a big one. I didn't think it was like
1,000.
Yeah.
And so first day we'll go through the days and then we can kind of talk about feelings and Ben had some pretty good insight.
Ben's got a whole note in his iPhone about his takeaways.
It was, you
read a poem, Ben?
You learn a lot about you learn a lot. That's what's cool about yourself. Cool about being out there. So,
on first day back, and he's got a hunt hat on and an orange shirt. I know it's a Tennessee shirt, but he's high vis.
And his Mayhem hunt.
Oh, he's all out. He's a hunter. He's a hunter.
He's gonna go work on the highway.
He wants to go. He was like, "Hey, how much can I buy a shotgun for? And can we go turkey hunting?" I'm like, "Yes, for sure. I'm in."
Nice.
So I'm gonna take Ben turkey hunting. And we might even try shoot a deer this fall too. So I got a rifle you can use. We just got to get you hunter safety.
New tree stand?
What's that?
Got a new tree stand on the way?
No. What's that company you're always
Novix.
Oh, okay.
You got one come out here.
All right.
Yeah.
We'll use your code.
No, you don't have to use my code.
We'll get one.
Okay.
So
it's already here. There's no
first
code.
day. What sucks is the first 2 days, almost 3 days, I was pretty sick. I don't know what happened. I don't know what I got. I don't know if I had that new variant of COVID. I don't know what it was, but
election year variant.
Do what?
The election year variant.
Yeah, the election year variant. Got that one. And so I was
going around. Pretty
achy, sick, kind of flu-y feeling, throat hurting, like just achy. So we get there, get everything ready, and we're like, screw it. We got, 4 or 5 hours of daylight?
No, it was like 2 or 3.
No.
Because it was after 5.
It was like 4 o'clock. So we hike up this couple hundred feet, get up into this kind of where you can see into this bowl. You can see into one valley, and it kind of comes around, and then there's another valley on the other side. And so we get up there, and we're kind of like, there's a main trail, and then it splits off, and there's just a ton of game trails. And so we're kind of going through game trails, and we're going through oak brush, which anybody who knows what oak brush is, Ben, what's your feelings on oak brush?
It sucks.
Yeah, it's awful.
Just grabby
and just like your pack is you're trying to go under stuff. So I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was.
So this will come later in this story. I'll tell it in a second. But so we're working our way around the top of this ridge. We're looking down in and where we glassed a ton of cow elk the previous year when we were out there. So we go around this ridge, and as we come over the other side, sure enough, there's a bull. Pretty sure he's a non-legal bull, and then 3 or 4 cows. They kind of worked their way over the ridge, but hey, saw elk first day, pretty good with it. The plan was for us to kind of split. We were going to walk farther along this finger that came down, and then Curtis and Bird were going to drop down this other finger, and it just turned into a mess. Where we started to drop down was thick. It was nasty. It was all rocks, slick. It was
Dark.
And so at one point I'm walking down and I've got the bugle, the pack. I hadn't like quite figured it out yet and where to put everything. And I tried to jam that bugle in the side pouch. Well, it had worked its way out. And so I'm walking and I slip. And as I slip, that bugle just jams into my side. And I thought it broke my ribs. So anyway, we worked down to the bottom of this floor. The plan was to work to where these wallows were. It's kind of hot this time of year. So plan was to get to the water and kind of sit it that night. We didn't make it. So we take the trail out. It's probably an hour walk, 45-minute walk, something like that. But it's just like a death march. It's just like this. It's not super steep, and it's on a kind of a 2-track, and then you hit the road, and then you got to climb up the road and then back to the camp. And dude, when I got back, I thought I had the full-on flu, shakes, cold, nasty. Luck
on the road, you're like, anyone have any ibuprofen?
Yeah, Ben had some ibuprofen, some zinc, and some vitamin C. And so, luckily, this is the first time we've kind of hunted hard, but had a cabin and a shower. Yeah. That shower, I sat in there for 20 minutes, full on, as hot as it could go. Yeah. Just sweated it or tried to sweat it out. Yeah, felt awful. Next morning, I woke up 1% on the whoop. Yeah, 1%. Never seen that before. So the next day we just,
when I was that sick.
Yeah. So the next day we just sat 2 wallows. We basically ping-ponged between 2 wallows, and we saw a mule deer doe and 2 fawns. We're sitting there.
Mule deer buck.
Mule deer. Oh yeah, mule deer buck. This was my fault. So we set up on this wallow, and I have a mule deer buck tag. Yep. And so we're set up this wallow. There's 3 trees. The wind is pulling to our backs or like into our face, pulling downhill. Yeah. So where's the only place you're not going to look?
Yeah, downhill.
Because where's your scent going? Yeah. And so we kind of hear a little commotion behind us. And sure enough, there's a 4x4 mule deer buck just staring at us. And so I'm behind a tree. And so I've got this new release. And if it's completely engaged, it's locked. Mm-hmm. But if it's back, I've got to mess with the setting. Yeah. Because usually it's completely loose. Yeah. This will grab
a little bit. Mine's done that.
And so I grab because I think it's
just
locked.
Enough to pull it back an inch or 2.
Goes, yeah. No Sorry, I spit everywhere. Way. Yeah, and just skied an arrow. Look, mule deer's still there. So grabbing it.
But arrow. Bird's on the other finger with an arrow in his leg.
Everybody's dead. Yeah. And so new arrow. I should have spun around the tree the other way. I didn't really. I had 25 yards was the range, and I tried to spin this way. And by the time I spun around the tree, he was gone. But then there was a little forky that came by too, but I didn't want him. Yeah, no. So that was the first day. That was completely my fault. You talk about bad feeling when you just hear doink, and I'm like, man. Oh. But he didn't run off. He just kind of like,
what was that?
Slowly made his way out of there. Yeah. So we went and sat the other wallow for 8 hours.
Well, hold on, Ben. Where were you at emotionally? Like, because going into it, like, you got a lot of expectations, did a lot of physical preparation. Like, how was day one? Just like the jitters out. Like, what was it all about?
No, first day.
I have so much to say. I don't think I should start here.
Hold on.
I do want to add something here, though.
First day, he was like, I think I overly prepared for elk hunting. Because this is like, I'm telling you, we sat.
Totally.
We sat that morning. We walked maybe, a mile to the other wallow, which was all downhill. Sat there for 8 hours. Till this fawn and mom come out.
And Ben asked what you
And Ben goes, why didn't you shoot those? I'm like, well, Ben, I did have an either sex tag. Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I'm not taking a mom with 2 fawns. Anyway.
Hey, but the way, I don't know how mule deer work, but whitetail don't do that. If you shoot the doe that is with the fawns, they will find another doe. And that doe will. I don't know if they shoot. If
you can only shoot man. No, I can't shoot Bambi's mom.
I would shoot Bambi's mom all day.
I'll shoot a doe. I'm not. That's whatever.
I know. But you try to.
First day.
And you're probably oversimplifying that.
No, seriously.
But there's not just like a pick of like. There's not just a bunch of does running around with it. Could be like, I'm gonna go unfettered through this forest.
They'll find one who either has milk or. I don't know if they will just start producing if the fawns come around them, but I'm pretty sure they will find one that has, like, if they kind of move, not like a pack, but if you see a bunch of doe, you'll see like 3 or 4 doe and some fawns.
I mean, this might have happened because this one had 2 on her. So
yeah,
I don't think they usually don't. Yeah, but anyway,
or are they around the same age?
Anyway,
they don't have a litter.
Anyway, I didn't shoot them, and so Ben was like,
"Cuter the critter, sweeter the meat."
That's true. Ben was distraught though. He's like, "Why didn't you shoot those?"
We're blowing it.
And so, so we walk back to because at first Sam, whose land we're on, he's like, "Hey, I'll drive you guys up there in the side-by-side." And we're like, "We're not driving up in the side-by-side. We came out here to hunt. We needed the side-by-side." I mean, if we were going to camp up there, 100%. Like I would have walked up there. But, dude, we were gaining 2,000 feet of elevation from the cabin, right? After you go down and then back up.
I mean, it would just take too long.
It took 45 minutes, 30 minutes in the Ranger.
Oh God!
It's no different than normally when we camp. You drive 1,000 feet up with the truck to where you're going to go, and then you start walking.
It made sense. But so we get back, and I'm not feeling better, but starting to feel a little better. So the next day we were like, all right, let's push it a little bit more. The next day.
This is day 3.
This is technically day 2, 2.5. Okay. We don't count that first night. Okay. We should because we walked like 4 or 5 miles. But anyway. This is day 2. This is the big day, right? So, big day, we're like, there's nothing high up. Let's go see what's on the other side, because the other side's lower. It's about 8,000 feet, 8,200 feet. And so, we climbed that first hill we climbed around that bowl. Didn't see anything. Caught some wind a couple times. But instead of working the inside of the bowl, we worked the outside of the bowl. And then we got to there's like an outcropping kind of saddle between these 2 hills. And we just start kind of glassing, and we look in this meadow, and we see, probably 8 or 10 cow elk.
Well, first we were looking at the inside part, and we saw a couple cows.
Yeah.
And we kind of wrote those off, and we're like, we'll just go check this other area.
Yeah,
and you're like,
that was what
hang on a second, there's a cow right there.
Yeah, there's a cow right there. And so we found this meadow it looks wide open. It's definitely not. We got there. And you just see cows coming through, and then all of a sudden you see a bull come through. And he's like black. He looked like he rolled in a wallow. And then another bull that you could definitely tell was a 6x6. And we're like, I was like, screw it. I'm going to rip a bugle right here and see what happens. Sure enough, I rip a bugle, start hammering. And we're like, we don't know what to do now because we've never had this before. So we bailed. Like, we're like, F it, let's go. And so we take off when we drop probably 600, 700 feet of elevation in about 15 minutes.
From the top of where we were at to the bottom was like exactly a mile. I think it was
a mile of walking.
Yes.
Okay, and then we lost about 700 feet, probably, right?
It was 800.
800 feet.
Yeah.
But we're Ben Scott's trying to put the spotting scope in, and I just pieced out. Ben's like, Rich was gone. So we take off and call in every once in a while, and every time answer. So we're trying to keep some type of cover while we're making our way down, and then we kind of like side skirt this hill. And then I'm bugling, and sure enough, this thing is going. And then it sounds like it's in the bottom. So we work our way. I get behind a tree. I'm hammering this bugle, and every time this thing is coming. So I start thrashing trees, hammering, all that type of stuff. And this thing's coming. This was at the bottom. 50, 60 yards probably, you think, behind those pines, and then just never showed up. I don't know if he got scared, got intimidated, what it was. We went a little too aggressive. Definitely didn't catch our scent, I don't think, because I feel like the thermals were pulling everything behind us that morning. But in that process, like, your heart's like, we're like, all right, here we go. The only thing, I've got to teach these guys to call a little bit, because I think having them behind would bring them in closer. So,
be somewhere in the middle.
I think that'll be our tactic next time. But from there, we keep hearing a bugle uphill, and every time we would, at least if we would move, you'd hear a bugle. If we stayed still, we wouldn't hear a bugle. And so we make the decision to try to catch the wind, go out, down probably, half a mile maybe, and then cut up the ridge. Where we decided to cut up was the thickest, nastiest, like we were on hands and knees crawling up this ridge, packs getting stuck about halfway to the bull. Every time we would call, though, he would bugle back.
We had to go there, though. I think it's important to add, because if we went straight up, then we wouldn't have had the wind.
We couldn't go around him the other way. The problem was
we kept having to get higher and higher too.
The problem was we didn't know the area and the terrain and the vegetation at that particular spot, I would say. And so our hopes were that if we get close enough, he's in a more open spot. He definitely wasn't. So we got within about 100 yards and decided to drop our packs, right? Which Curtis vehemently is against, but we were like, screw it. We're going to try to go through because you just couldn't move. Like every time you're like fighting your pack, and this stuff was nasty.
So you literally like you had to push it through and then follow it, and then
no, we're on all hand, like on crawling.
So you just left your packs?
And then we just left our bag.
Okay,
we marked it on Onyx and left our bags, and Ben marked it on his Apple Watch. And so we're going. We'd creep probably 25, 30 yards through this shit, and then call, and he would call 20 or 30, call. And so we're like, all right, we're getting close, but I'm like, it's not opening up. I don't know if we can attach the video of how this isn't even the video I have isn't even how thick it was. Like this is an open
clearing,
This is an open spot.
oh wow.
And so one of the times we creep and I sit down, and right as I sit down, this thing is walking towards us. And Scott's still walking, and like you slipped or something.
No, we were sitting down, and I moved my knees from a bent to a straight position.
And
I didn't know there was an elk.
I was like, stop moving. And he's like, what? And I'm like, he's staring right at us. And he's like, where? And I'm like, shut the up. There was more choice words, but I'm literally staring here, and I want to say 15 yards. No exaggeration. This thing is
in that thick.
In that thick. That's where they get up. They get up there and they hide. They feel safe. You know, they are safe.
Yeah.
And so
we could have shot an arrow. It wouldn't have gotten to. There's no chance an arrow would have gotten. Like I hear people like, oh, I had him at 15 yards, but I didn't have a shot. I'm like, how the hell do you not have a shot? I know now why. How you? And I mean, I might even say he was closer than 15 yards, maybe 10 yards. But he's just looking at us, and I'm pretty sure he was that black bull.
And that's when you just get the knife out, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like doing this like head thing where he's trying to see.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, he just takes off. I'm like heartbroken. But he stops 50 yards and just starts thrashing trees. And I'm like, you guys hear that? And they're like, yeah. So I just start thrashing trees. And every time I would thrash, he would thrash. I'm like, all right, we're still in this, you know? So I bugle. He thrashes trees. I'm like, all right, let's start cutting the distance a little bit. Stupid. Thinking it'll open up. But so what happens is he's kind of working his way around, and he's not moving fast, but he's working away. So we're like, we got to go. Mm-hmm. So we go, and I keep calling, keep thrashing. Every time I would thrash, he'd call.
And here's a pedestrian question, but like, you know, I picture like T-Rex walking through, like, cause you follow his path and it was less like, or does it just close back in after?
It closes back in, but there's game trails all through there. Yeah. But they're not like, you're like, how does an animal this large get through this stuff?
They
navigate
so well.
And you would think.
Yeah.
But dude,
you would think they'd come out with crap all over their antlers. They never do.
Dude, it was bizarre. And so
wandered through it.
What happens is we keep following them. Well, then we get into this like not open. It's still pretty thick, but timber. You've been in these beds and trails where it's like it's a high traffic area. They bed there a lot. So it's very worn down. There's trees. Like there's not a ton of this oak. There's none of this oak brush. It's just heavy timber. Mm-hmm. And so I call, and I'm like, maybe I should cow call because he doesn't have cows with him. Maybe he'll come back. So I cow call. Sure enough, this spike bull and then a 6x6 and 10 cows make their way in here. You saw those, right? You didn't see that?
I just saw the spike bull and then a couple cows.
And so what happens is I'm down here on this hill, on this ridge. Our scent is going kind of directly uphill. And I've found this where this tree had fallen over. The roots were sticking up. And it wasn't big, but it was enough that I could kind of hide behind. So this spike bull or little raghorn is 30 yards from me.
Just right in between you and the 6x6.
And the 6x6 is up on the hill, and the cows are all back here. So I'm cow calling downhill, and everybody's looking downhill. So I'm like, all right, we're good. And at this point, I'm not super comfortable with the diaphragm. I'm like trying to do it too loud. Like towards the end of it, I feel like I had gotten pretty good at it. But at this point, I'm like trying to be too loud. I'm like, if I go back, I'm just like replaying all these memories. And so I'm trying to call him down because that spike is coming around and he's going to catch our scent. Yeah. And so I'm ranging the 6x6. And this is another part that I'm like, so I'm ranging. And you know how like there's still trees and stuff hanging.
It's going to catch.
And so it's catching. And so I had two ranges. I had 81 and I had 67.5.
You're like,
81
hold this more steady.
and then like I'm trying to hold steady with my left hand. No, at this point I'm shooting left-handed, so I had my rangefinder on my right hand, and I'm shaking because we're in this I'm like full on full panic, and so I'm shaking and trying to range this thing. Well, I get 81, and I get 67 and a half, and I'm like, do I take the shot?
You're like, did I move?
And I'm like 67 and a half from a seated position uphill. Should I take it? And I'd made my mind up. I'm like, I'm taking the shot because if he's at 81, it's going to fall short and it's not going to do anything. So I'm like, so I go to draw. When I go to draw, I'm pretty sure that bull winded us the spike. So he alerts everybody and they're just gone. Yeah. And you just talk about just a complete adrenaline just dump. So
and we'll get to see it, but like just so I know, you like, so he's shaking and he's all over the place. Like, is your footage all going to be Blair Witch or like?
No, I filmed all that whole encounter pretty much, and I was really steady. And you
guys were both filming, but you were in close proximity.
Yeah, so Sky was A cam, he was on Rich, and I was B cam, long lens, and so I got the spike bull really well, and you can kind of see the
there's another body up there.
Yeah, you can see him moving between the trees.
Gosh,
but and I still I'm blown away at how well they even though they're brown, they camouflage so well.
So well, you can just see their butts.
I didn't see those 10 until they all got up and ran away. And then it's just like it's an army of them just going down the woods.
Man, you talk about just such a letdown and like almost relief where you're just like the
you can relax.
Yeah, it was so bad. And so then we're like, all right, let's go back and get our packs and we'll come back and get some lunch. And Ben sets his watch to home and just takes off. And this isn't Ben's fault, but we bumped another herd. Because,
probably 10.
Ben's just marching around. I'm like, dude, slow down. What are you doing?
We're still hunting.
Waypoint.
We're still hunting right now.
We never saw them, but they were below us and crashed. But you're just like, man, so we get our packs and come back. And what's crazy is our packs, it took us probably, 45 minutes to an hour to get to where we were. And then to get our packs was 5 minutes away. Like, I'm like, dang, this is going to take forever.
I think it's important to add to that whole interaction from where we glassed them to when we got our packs was 4 hours?
4 hours.
At least.
4 hours. And dude, it's just, you're just on high alert.
Yeah, totally.
And it was, I'll say, and Scott said this, the most fun elk hunting day I've ever had that we didn't kill anything. Yeah. And even the day that we killed something last year wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Until we killed something.
Because
this was we were
in
in it. We had a couple close interactions, saw 2 bulls, thought we were going to have another one. Earlier on even than that. And then after that, we met up with Curtis and then went and sat a wallow at the bottom of the hill and didn't see shit.
That was the first day where you always see stuff on YouTube or Instagram, whatever, and you're like, this is how it's supposed to be. Because when we've been on public over the counter, they're so pressured they don't act like they're supposed to. And this was
still even a weird kind of anomaly day because it never happened again. There was no bugling really after that.
Was it cooler that day or something?
It was a little cloudy. That's probably what did it.
But that didn't even do it because later it was cloudy and
more and colder.
Yeah.
So that was day 2. Day 3, we got up on the backside of that and saw 2 cows and a spike. And so Curtis decided to go after them. Well, in the process of going after them, we bugled and had one bugling right down below us.
This is the same rules, 4 on one side.
Got to have 4 on one side or a 6 foot brow tine.
Yeah, okay.
Or 6 inch. And so we have this one bugling. He's bugled a couple times, right? And so we go down this drainage with good cover, get to the bottom, bugle. He bugles back, and then just shuts up. Won't do anything. And so we tried to kind of navigate him and figure out where he is. Curtis had gone after these cows because he had a cow tag. He comes back up and starts glassing the hill, and we're texting back and forth the random spots where we get service. And he said that bull just went up a little higher and just sat in the sun for a little while, but did not want to talk, didn't want to participate, did not want to do anything. So we went after.
He had eyes on it?
Saw it, just glassing it.
How far was he from it at that point?
Far.
Pretty far.
We were a couple 100 yards.
Yeah.
That day, we also were in some of the thickest stuff we've ever been in.
Dude.
Hands and knees crawling.
It's so bad.
For 100 yards.
This was really bad. And so we get to the backside of this ridge and then come up the backside on this kind of deserty type. It's so weird how
changes.
East facing, west facing, north facing, south facing slopes are just completely different terrain. So, most of what they're at is obviously north facing. Ben Googled a lot of stuff while we were in the woods and learned a lot.
About what?
Just elk behavior.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we did everything, he'd be like, on hot days they said sit at wallows. I'm like, Ben, that's what we're doing. Oh, yeah. Hey, it says here they'd be on north facing slope. I'm like, what faces that slope? He's like, north facing. What was your famous quote that you kept asking? This might be a stupid question. Is that what you kept saying?
I kept
Curtis,
saying
Curtis
that.
was like,
well, and I started it with that because the first day when you guys went and got your tags, I said something like,
oh, can we turn these back in if we don't
can you
get
turn
anything?
back in? You'll kill anything. And Curtis goes, well, that was just a stupid question. I'm like, how's that a stupid question? I don't know anything.
Turn this back in.
Curtis is so nice and so quiet, but
Yeah.
then sometimes he's just like
gets you.
ruthless.
Yeah, and I was pretty sure he hated me from then on. But
No, Curtis doesn't hate anybody. We
I
all
see that
thought he
being a valid
hated us
question.
until
we all
last
thought
year.
he hated us.
So rest of that day, we glassed. So we get back up to the spot where we glassed all those bulls. Well, we look and we see 3 or 4 cows cross that meadow going the opposite way down towards where we knew some water was. So we went for it, and nothing. We didn't see anything. They never came to the water. We did have a little chuckle bugle, right? Somebody heard one? You guys heard one.
Yeah, over a
I didn't hear.
hill, but nothing.
We had
real.
some doe mule deer come in. Those things are the stupidest looking things when they go away. Yeah, they do this like they're not getting away
bunny
fast.
rabbits.
They're so dumb.
I don't get it. I don't know.
Yeah,
Whitetail will do that every now and then, but mule deer, they always hop.
Yeah,
and they sound like
velociraptors.
Yeah,
Ben's like,
because it makes
"What's
so
that?"
much noise.
Well, they do that like that. They blow like whitetail
slow-wheeze,
do,
yeah.
but it's like scarier than a whitetail.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of
Nothing.
crazy.
Yeah, whitetail don't make any scary noises.
They do that blow, and
The
it
snort
sometimes
wheeze.
sounds like like when a
I've
doe
never
blow.
heard a snort wheeze up close.
Oh man, dude, it smells
I've
like
heard
it sounds like a
grunts.
velociraptor.
That's cool.
You're just like, what is that?
yeah, that's kind of cool.
Bong. Yeah,
Clever girl.
crazy. So, that's day 3. Day 4 was awful. Day 4
Day 4 was our first day at the wallow.
first day. No, yeah, but that morning we remember we went and sat a wallow, bottom of the hill.
But so we walk up there to the wallow, and Curtis was with us, and we're kind of like, where should we?
That's afternoon.
No, in the morning, right?
That was afternoon. Morning, we did the whole walk down to that
You're
other
right.
water source and came back, and then just nothing. It was just, I don't think we saw. And what sucks is, so you'll sit at these wallows, and you'll hear branches breaking or stuff like that, and you're like,
Here we go.
here we go,
This
your
is
heart's
it.
going, and then a bird will pop out. And I don't know how these tiny birds
You're
break
like,
these huge ass branches.
Shoot
Like,
it, yeah.
I mean, like, Scott's like, here he comes, and I'm like, that's a bird. He's like, no way, that's a bird. Sure enough, little bird flies out.
I can tell you how
here.
many times I've drawn back on a squirrel.
hell?
Just
Oh,
like,
squirrel, yeah.
you son of a.
Yeah. And so we end up going, we're like, screw this. There's nothing over here. It's too low. We're going back to the high side. So we go up to the high side. The reason he said that was such a horrible spot is because in the afternoon, the wind is coming up.
Yeah.
And so our wind would have went right across the wallow. But anyway, we walk into this area. Curtis is like, well, this is a horrible spot. That's where we were standing the other morning. We had to stand there the other morning.
Hey,
because
don't
the
stand
wind,
here. This is a terrible spot. Good, we spent all day here.
because the wind was terrible. But
That would have
then
been good information to have 2 days ago.
But then we look, and he's like, oh, maybe we'll go sit in there. And he's like, maybe there'll be a room for one cameraman in there. We go in there. It's a house. There's, 6 pine trees
At
Oh,
least.
nice.
covered in the front,
Like a little hunting blind
4
almost.
on the back. But they're like a couple of them had died. A bear had gone in there and just thrashed everything into this perfect. We'll have to post the
cave.
video. Dude, look at this thing.
But like it was literally a house at some point or a little cabin?
Look at this. It's a perfect blind.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
We built up the front, but like,
That's epic.
it was incredible. We called it Fort Mayhem. We sat there that afternoon.
It's important too to note for the rest of the story that we looked at the camera and there was a 6x6 or 6x7 or whatever, and
Yeah.
he was on there the morning before.
The morning
at 8:30.
before, yeah.
So at that point, we're like, okay, we have 5 more chances. He's coming back to this
Let's
thing.
just sit here. And
And
so we sat there 5 more
Had he
times.
come back, it was the
And he
perfect
never
spot.
came back.
Yeah.
And we sat there
Mm.
and sat there. So our plan was the next couple of days was to sit that wallow in the evening, in the morning, and then hunt middle of the day, kind of walk around. And so that night we sat there. Did anything come that night?
No.
Nothing.
Nothing ever came.
Nothing ever came, actually.
Not that
and
night,
then,
not ever.
So the technical wasn't the last morning. It was the second to last morning. we had the bright idea. Curtis was going to the other wallow. We were going to the top wallow. And we were going to park the Ranger at the bottom so Curtis could just walk, and we didn't want to scare anything away. And that hike, we get there, and it was 30 minutes, just sustained effort. Like, imagine stair stepper for 30 minutes. That's all it was. We get there, Bird had shed all of his clothes and was hung them around the fort. I mean, just trying to dry everything. It was awful. It was pretty bad. Didn't see anything there. We go to Curtis, go sat that wallow. We didn't see anything there either. And so that whole 6th day or whatever, or 5th day, it was awful. That was not fun. You're like, all right, this sucks. Last morning, we're going to hunt all day and then drive to a hotel. That morning, we sit the wallow, and then about 9, we were going to get up at 9:30 and head over and just still hunt some. And so about 9:30, hear a bugle, little crappy bugle. We heard a bunch of bugles on the public land, and we were like, not a bull, not a bull. And then we hear this one that's probably about 100 yards out, and Ben goes, hunters. And me and Scott are like, I think that was real. It was so good. And so we sit there, and we hear some, like, scraping and scratching, and we're like, all right, he's coming, he's coming. We sit there for another 30, 45 minutes, nothing. So we're like, screw it. Let's go. Let's go walk and see. And we're walking in the brush about 30 yards, 45 yards into the brush, and all of a sudden Scott goes, cow, and yanks me down. And so I'm like flat on my back, and I'm staring at this cow from 30 yards. Ben's just in a tree. Scott's just head down. She stared at us for 5-6 minutes and then started walking towards us, and then just kind of started walking down. So we're like, screw it, let's go after him. Never saw him again because, Ben, you saw some downhill right from there. And in that process, I was like, all right, Ben, I love you. It's too hard for 3 of us to be quiet in the woods. I was like, me and Scott are going to go back, get the Ranger, take it over, meet Curtis at that wallow. Curtis and Bird were at the other wallow. We'll meet you there. We'll hunt our way over there. And so we kind of creeped around, saw a bunch of really good sign. Never really saw anything, but in the process, I guess, walked around Curtis, who was on a bull below us. Never saw it. He never saw it. He just heard it. And so then we decided to go back to the wallow. Me, Curtis, and Scott go slow hunt.
That was the first time, too, we'd been in that part of
the woods
out
right
in the
there.
woods,
Yeah.
And realized at that point, okay, this is the best hunting on the whole
Huntable.
property.
It was the most huntable because there was some open patches where we could actually hunt. It was higher up where that oak brush couldn't grow, I'm pretty sure. And so it was like, had probably just as many elk and bulls as the other side, but the other side just not huntable. Like, not that it's not huntable, you have to know the land.
Yeah.
And
you
so we
could work
found
this quietly. You had shooting lanes.
Yeah. And so we go back out with Curtis, me, Scott, and Curtis, and we're walking down this hill and look, and we see elk. We're like, all right, here we go. Mostly cows. We think it's all cows. And we start kind of trying to creep around them, keep the scent up behind us. And then all of a sudden, this bull just walks into this, like, perfect shooting lane, staring right at us. And so we just stand there for what, probably 5-6 minutes, something like that. And he's just staring into our soul. And then he just kind of, like, puts his head down and just kind of walks behind the tree. So we range the tree. I step in front. I've made up my mind, like, I'm shooting an arrow at 41. It would have been, like, it would have had to not drop over this log, but it would have been, I think, about perfect.
Yeah.
It would have, the log came up to, like, just probably where the heart was, so if I shot long.
Yeah.
And so in hindsight, the whole time I'm thinking Curtis is going to call behind me and bring him back around.
Yeah.
And so we just hear him kind of milling around right in front of, like, there's this huge brush. And so in hindsight, you play all these games, you're like, man, we should have called. But he had cows. But it was almost like he wasn't with the cows because he never moved with the cows. And so we couldn't move because there were cows everywhere. So you got at least 20 eyeballs on you. And so he kind of works behind this brush. Well, then I'm like, we stand there for 5-10 minutes-ish probably. And so finally I'm like, all right, we're talking, all right, do we go up and around him? So I try to go up and around him, see him again, still no, like, real shot. And he's kind of staring, like, looking, doesn't really like, not that he didn't like, I don't think he saw us or knew what was going on.
Knows something's up.
Well, and so he kind of just is milling around. He doesn't go away. He kind of is just milling there and slowly is, like, feeding, walking away, but I can't move on him because there's cows. We see these cows downhill, and he kind of like goes around where the ridge goes around and then into this aspen kind of brush, and he's feeding there. So Curtis is like, do we try to make a move there? And I'm like, I feel like if we move, he's gonna see us, or these cows are gonna see us. And about that time, he kind of works his way around, and so we're gonna try to make a move where the cows either scent us or see us, and they go crazy. But they only run 50 yards, and then they stop and stand there. And so it's
weird when they do that.
And so then we couldn't make a move again because they're right there, and so you're playing all these games like, all right, what could we have done? What should we have done? And it just is what it is. I think early season's just really hard because you can't call. You can't. They're not acting quite normal. He was with those cows, but he wasn't with those cows.
Yeah, they're not aggressive. They're not mating. So like the cow call works maybe, but
maybe it makes him come back, and Curtis is like, I should have called, and I'm like, yes and no. Like you don't know. Because like a bull call, like if you bugle at him or even chuckle or anything, is it gonna scare him?
Sometimes they're like, why is he doing
not
that?
even that. Well, not even that. But he's like, oh, I don't want to fight. Right now,
exactly. Because they're not in that mindset of trying to fight.
So man, it was awesome. Like I said, we were in them. It was cool.
You were actively hunting most of the time.
We were actively hunting. Like I said, we did every combination, I feel like, of stalking, walking, glassing, hunting, sitting. We sat more than I ever have. And, everybody, we talked earlier, everybody wants to criticize how much we don't sit, all of our friends here, and how much we just hike. We're just on a hiking trip and fitness trip.
You're a hiking team.
And man, we sat more than I ever have, and we didn't have any chances when we sat. Not one freaking chance when we sat.
When you talk about it, I just wonder why you talk about glassing and sitting mutually exclusively. Like
so
usually
sitting, I would say like in a prime spot that you like on a wallow, on a bed, on
where you think they're going to come
food,
to,
where you think they're going to come from. Glassing, you're going to get in a spot up and try to visibly look for them, and honestly, we glass a lot while we're walking, even in tight perimeters. Like while you're walking, if you can see a horn,
because that's how we saw the first cow that let us down. We stalked. Curtis stopped, I think, or you, and you looked, and he said, "That's an elk."
Yeah.
And so then we closed in a couple hundred yards to the group of cows, and then we saw that bull.
And then that bull was there.
Day.
Yeah.
And you guys learned that from
Curtis.
Curtis.
Yeah, from Curtis. I mean, so like usually when we walk, we are actively looking, and we're walking really slow. But I've never really thought to glass.
Yeah, but he'll walk slow and glass.
And glassing in the woods is as long as you have a more or a less power.
Because it just narrows your focus into like, okay, I'm looking at that spot.
But this is a little bit like, I think we have 10 by 48 or whatever it is, and so
10 by 40,
and then you can go 12 by 50 or whatever for longer range stuff, and so.
This was the first time where we went to glass, like high up, and we called it glassing, but we actually did it. So last year, for example, I remember one time we were up on a ridge, and you could see two sides of two different mountains.
Yeah.
And we were gonna air quotes glass, and we're all kind of just laying on our bags, sleeping, eating. And Curtis like, "Hey,
let's get up here and glass.
Hey, I see elk. Like I'm glassing. What are you guys doing?"
Passively glassing.
Yeah. And so this year when we said it, we actually sat there and looked and saw stuff.
Yeah, we saw a bear with 2 cubs. We saw a bunch of elk. But they were either too far away or whatever.
Yeah, sometimes it's actually fun to glass.
It is fun to glass, but it's just so daunting when you're looking at so much land, and then you're looking there and you're like, I can't see anything. And then all of a sudden you look in this little tiny spot and you're like, oh, there's some elk. Mm-hmm. And so it's just, it just takes eyes and time, and it's
that's what I'm accustomed to, is like at the moose camp, for example, you would go to a high point and you would glass until you saw something.
Yeah.
And then try and think about how it was going to be, but oftentimes they're gone by the time you get there.
Yeah. So that's the hard part, is like how far is too far away, and then are you just setting up for the next day and how you're going to hunt?
Yeah.
And so
some people will spend their whole first day, never get into it because they don't want the chance of scaring anything. Right. They just stay up high and they glass all day.
Yeah.
And then they're like, especially if you have an idea that they're in certain spots, maybe you've been there before or whatever, you just glass all day. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of make a game plan for the next few days.
Right.
So, I mean, there's everyone has a certain way.
Yeah, the hard part for us was like, with that is we know there's elk there.
Yeah, exactly.
We just gotta, like we'd walk by sign and I'm like, yeah, but I know there's elk. But, when it was super fresh,
that's one thing, yeah.
When we would hunt public land, you're just looking for any relatively fresh sign, because you just want to know if there's actually elk in the area. Yeah.
You know
we
they're
knew
there.
they were elk. We just got to see how fresh it was. It's
Sign sign.
Ben smelled some fresh elk piss, right?
Yeah.
Pungent, stings the nostrils.
Stout.
Crawled through it the one day.
We crawled through it one day, and you can smell them. Like you'd be like, we'd be walking, and there'd be several clips in the video. I'm sure we were just like,
yeah. We just
and then you're like, check the wind. You're like, there's elk close. Like you can like now that you know that smell, you're like,
when you get
oh,
close
I know that smell.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Ben, I haven't heard from you, man. Like, you just
kinda
you holding it all in or what?
No, man, I'm just waiting for my turn.
It's your turn, man.
It's
Go
your
for it.
turn. All right, where do we start?
Add some spice.
All right, so can we talk about Mayhem Hunt at all?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm gonna take these off. It's hard to. So I started my lessons note with there's a baseline level of fitness to be able to elk hunt. That's what I learned. That was number one.
Yeah.
What is it?
But you thought
I
you
mean, I don't know where where it is, but like
But you need to have some fitness.
you gotta have it because me and Scott prepped probably like 5 weeks, I think.
2 and 3 times a week, right?
Yeah, 2
and
times
you
a
have an
week.
incredible baseline fitness.
Yes.
Yeah, like I would have been fine, I think, without it.
You would have
It would've
100%
hurt.
been fine.
But the
little
thing,
bit, but-
the thing that I like, he talks about it, and people talk about it a lot about how fit you have to be to do it, and people I feel like people still overlook it. And I mean, you look at you look at Cam Haynes, you look at you guys going out there, like you have so much fitness, and you still say it's really hard. And then people are like, oh, I'm just going to go out there and kind of screw around. And then they either don't see anything or maybe they do see something and I don't know. I don't think people truly understand. Like you may not understood until now that how hard it is.
Yeah.
I think part of the reason I would say is because we talked about it on that Sunday we were hunting them and we had no food, no water. But it's not even that you don't ever want your fitness to be in question.
Right.
If I
You
want to
wanna-
get up this hill and I want to play
Yeah.
the wind, I don't want to think, man, it's going to suck
It's
to
gonna
climb it. I don't know if I can do that and then have to take a shot. You
Right.
never
Yeah.
want it to be a
I
question.
can't imagine not going. Well, I look at that hill and I'm like, this is going to suck.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it.
Yep.
There's no, this is going to suck.
I'm
Can
not
I
gonna
do it?
Yeah, I'm
Can
not
I
going to do
it?
that. I'll do something different.
I think that a misperception can probably come because there are also a lot of unfit people who hunt, but like you just know that your buddy Phil went on a hunt and it was successful. You don't know the parameters. Like if he had a guy
Rifle.
who like it was
Rifle
it was
or a
rifle, it was in
guide
an
or
area.
a-
He didn't pack the
area.
meat out.
Yeah,
like you
for
know what
sure.
I mean? Like
There's a
any
lot.
of those kind of things.
There's so many variables that you can't like one hunt almost you can't compare it to the next hunt at all.
No.
Yeah. So like for example, the worst climb we did was I think it was at day 6 when we got dropped. We dropped off David and then we hiked up. It was just pure incline. I don't know how much elevation it was, but it took 29 minutes to get to the top. And like you said, Bird was like dying. And like I looked at my watch and I was like it was pretty much like zone 2. And it felt just like the stair stepper.
Yeah.
But what people I didn't really think about it either, is you're wearing like 20 to 30 pounds on your back for the whole like 10, 12 hours pretty much.
And chest.
Yeah.
Because you have a bino holder, which you guys didn't have binos, but you guys had camera gear on your chest.
And banana Ritos.
And banana Ritos.
Yep.
Ben made a
Yeah,
new
we
invention while
clipped
we were
our
out there.
cameras right here. And those are like a couple pounds. But so yeah, you have that and your hips and your lower back and your butt cheeks and everything's just like lighten up. And me and Scott would in the morning, like we'd get in early and we would just rip the band, like no warm up. We would just throw on like 30 pounds. Yeah, in training, and we would just start stepping or sledding, whatever, no warm up.
Yeah.
And I think actually that's the best way to prep too, because like when you're out there, it's the same thing. It's 5 a.m. You start on your packs and you just start going. Like, there's
no warm. That's
No
what
one
Bird
wants to
said.
get up at 4:30
That's
to
what
warm
Bird
up.
said. Bird was like, next year I'm just gonna get up early and work out first thing, straight out of bed. There's no warm up. I mean, there is in that you're not like taxing your joints and
you
hopping
don't
into a
sprint.
squat.
You go
But
out and you start
your heart
walking,
rate gets to
jogging.
probably 120, 130 20 minutes after you wake up.
Yeah.
Like we got up every morning at 5 or 5:30, between 5 and 5:15 usually every morning, and we were in the woods by 6.
Bird said that his heart rate got up to, he was like 170 for 15 minutes.
Bird
or
only
something.
started training about 5-6 weeks ago,
Yeah.
and Bird would be a good candidate of like he works out every day, does Everyday Hero has been doing that, and then in the last couple weeks has like
Ramped it up a little
specialized
bit, yeah.
in hunting prep, like
grunt
echo
work
bike
and
a lot,
stuff.
sled pushing a lot, box step ups, lateral box step ups, and so like he said, if I would have done this cold, it would have been
Yeah.
You know, and granted, you're hunting with us who.
I was
like,
about to say, especially with you freaks, like.
Well, and
you know,
Scott's
you can
Scott's
lose
built for
perspective.
the mountain. Like when
Yeah.
he starts hiking, we always joke when Scott goes go home mode, you're just
Yeah.
like, gosh dang it, here we go, because he's got those long legs.
It's like the drone, just hit the home button.
Yeah.
It really
Scott
is, and Scott's
throws-
just like, whoa.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That was lesson number one. But it actually kind of made me think even back to when I was on a team, like on Justice. Like you never, like you know the group you're going with, and I just never wanted, like Scott said, you never want your fitness to be the limiting factor in you like doing anything.
Yeah.
And going with you guys, like I know Scott's like just a freak.
Yeah.
Really good.
And then obviously you're fit. I'm just like, well, I don't want to be like, I don't ever want to be like, hey guys, hang on, wait
Hey,
for me,
I
the camera
can't.
guy.
Yeah.
So I think we trained appropriately, and so Mayhem Hunt helps.
Mayhem Hunt
Yeah.
coming soon.
But other than that, I've just got like a bunch of words of
Go for
like lingo.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for people listening, because I didn't know what a wallow was until
Yeah.
I got there, and so you keep saying that. I think it's important for people to know like a wallow is like an area of water.
Water, yeah.
Where like bull elk, they'll drink, and then like somebody comes behind me, he's like, oh, I don't like that. He'll wallow around, like scratch his horns, get
Yep.
dirty.
Yep,
Yeah.
kind of claim it.
That's important to know. And they drink water there during the day, apparently.
Yeah.
Even though
We never saw
I
it.
never
Yeah.
saw that.
Nope, we never saw it.
Bedding, that's kind of a given. It's where they lay down. They're
A
all
vocab
grouped
lesson,
in
I
the
love
whole
this.
group of them throughout the day. It's too hot. Elk versus mule deer. I learned that was a thing. Didn't know that.
What do you mean?
Like
That
I
they're
got
separate animals.
like if you, before okay, it might be ignorant, but before I
Yeah.
just thought mule deer maybe was like a baby elk deer or a
Oh.
bull. I don't know. Like I just didn't. I never
Well,
really
so
thought
this is
about it.
what's cool is like Ben literally
Really
has
didn't know much
zero-
about hunting, yeah.
zero perspective on hunting, never been in the woods really to like hunt. You've been in the woods, but
Like just like for a night.
Right,
like camping.
exactly.
Yeah.
But Ben went from like that nothing to probably one of the harder styles
Yeah.
of hunting. I would say
Yeah.
elk, high country elk hunting, besides maybe sheep or
Grizzly
goat
bear.
hunting or grizzly bear because of your life
Yeah.
is the hardest style of hunting.
Yeah.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
archery,
Anyone who talks
archery
about-
for
and
sure.
In
It
North
was
America,
nice.
I don't know what, I don't know.
It was nice to have like to go back to the cabin and build a shower.
Yeah,
that
that was
like,
huge.
Yeah,
like,
that's
I mean,
next level.
like you guys talk about it, I just don't know how I would do it like without a shower. If I'm being honest.
I
I
took-
don't
I would
like.
take-
We
I
know
don't
you
like
take like
thinking
a
about it.
45-minute shower every night.
The sleeping is fine. Like I
Yeah.
can sleep wherever I think as long as it's cold. But like
It was not cold the first night.
I do not want to go without a shower.
I
And
would
it was
have
nice
a-
being able to talk to my girls every night too. Like having service.
I took
throughout
a
the day.
cold bottle of water, and that's what I would shower with. I did
Yeah.
that 3 times. It was horrible.
Glassing, you kind of explain that. Winding, it's just like, your scent. We have a smell, and if they smell you, they don't like it.
Yeah, a
Vice
lot of
versa,
people
we can
talk
smell
like
them.
scent lock and whatever, which you might be able to use for deer, but I don't.
No,
I don't
it
think it's
doesn't-
applicable
No,
for
it's
elk.
you hunt the wind. I don't care what anyone says. You can like I've done everything you can think of. I've used the scent spray. I'll leave my clothes out. The clothes that I'm going to hunt in the next day,
Outside.
I'll leave them outside in the grass, and I'll get dressed outside.
Yep.
Which
You just can't cover it.
you
I
can't-
mean, maybe
like,
in a
that helps a
tree
little bit.
stand, maybe.
it helps a little bit. No. There's no covering it. If you don't hunt the wind, you're not going to hunt good. Like that, and any real hunter will tell you that you have to hunt the wind.
I mean, so we checked the wind. I mean, you
It was
saw
swirling every day.
it swirling,
Yeah.
but just the frequency at which you check the wind is almost annoying. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh, I feel a wind change.
It's almost like it's
Sure
like
enough,
a
you're just like-
presentation when you do it too, because we're all like locked in.
Yeah,
Where's it going?
it's crazy. Like,
Everybody stops. Oh,
yeah, yep.
I remember the day we were stalking them and we had the wind and you hear the tree rustling go quiet and they're kind of like 50, 60 yards out. And Curtis is like, you've got to be kidding me. He hits it again. It's slowly going back towards them.
And you just see this.
and then the
puff
trees start rustling again. He hits it. It's going back. And I'm like, oh, so much relief.
of, dude, it's crazy. You see this just like you watch the puff with like. It's just, it's a crazy, and everybody does it. As soon as somebody does it, everybody's like. You just see this puff of white dust, odorless white
Yeah.
dust, just floating there, and you're like, and it you don't realize how much that dust is affecting just the
Yeah.
whole like your whole
Affects
mood.
everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of winding, I think this is important. We talked about Fort Mayhem. And so we decided we couldn't pee in Fort Mayhem
Yeah.
because of the smell.
Yep.
And the
Because we were gonna sit it for 5 more times, so I'm like, we're not using this as a urinal. Like we first all pissed when we got there, and I'm like, no more, because if we piss here, because you'd come to some of these elk beds, and they'd obviously been there frequently, but there was no fresh piss, but
Yeah.
it smelled like elk piss. So you're like, they've got to smell our stuff, you know? So
yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that you know, I don't know, but I've heard that the piss smell doesn't matter.
no, well,
I don't know though.
we made Scott piss in an Nalgene.
So what happened was I had 2 48-ounce Nalgenes, and then I'd have like a plastic bottle for emergencies every day. And so the first 3-4 days, I drank all of them. Even if I wasn't thirsty, I just wanted to stay hydrated. A ton of electrolytes in there. And the one night I'm sitting there, and you know when you have to pee, you start to get uncomfortable, but it's not that bad. I sat with the discomfort, like minor discomfort for an hour and a half, and it just kept growing and growing, and it became like painful at one point, and I was sweating, and I'm trying to hold it in, and it's dribbling out. And I was like, and I can't move. I know I can't move at this point because
you'll pee yourself.
It's perfect. It's 7:30. Like the sun's about to go down. This is right when they're going to come.
This is like the perfect time that they're coming out.
And so I'm aware of that. I'm like, hey, do you care?
We sat in this blind for 3 hours or 2 hours for this time.
Yeah. And I'm like, hey, do you care if I pee myself? And he's like, no, the smell. And then Bird's like, go in your Nalgene. And I was like, you are a genius. So there's probably, 5 ounces left in it. So I chug whatever's in there, and I pee 40 ounces into it.
No way.
Yeah. I could measure it based on the lines. I peed out 40 ounces.
These are two separate thoughts. This is fantastic.
We got to another spot, and I'm like, did you pour that out yet? And he's like, no. I was like, pour it out. You don't want it like stagnating in there.
I did Dumb and Dumber when he's peeing in the bottles.
Yeah. I drank out.
Give me another bottle.
I drank out of it the next day. I washed it.
I would not drink after Scott after that.
Sterile.
I don't blame you.
Taste.
I think what's really important, like what's cool about Ben is in anything like that you're learning a new skill or new sport or whatever, like you got to drop your ego. So you're the perfect candidate for that, where you're like, you don't mind asking silly things because you have to learn, right?
Yeah.
I just ask a lot of questions, I think, too.
What's that?
I just ask a lot of questions.
But I was fine with it. Like at no point was I like, stop asking stupid questions.
Like, can I turn my tag back in? That's a valid question. You have no idea, right? It's like, it's actually kind of
they're not cheap either.
Yeah. If you're out of state, they're not cheap.
No.
But also, you guys are set up to like just tell Ben some tall tales and make him believe that.
I think we may have told you one for about 30 seconds and you believed it, and then I was like, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was.
Was that when David said I was gullible?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Saying like that,
David's
they do
so good. He's so quiet and unassuming, and then he'll just have like a zinger, and you're like,
got him.
You may keep going to my list.
Yeah, keep going.
All right. It's
Like
kind
make
of
him
long.
think that he actually needs a code.
I learned that binos is short for binoculars.
Yeah, binos.
I didn't know that until day 4, I think. And I thought Scott was saying bio harness. It's bino harness for your binoculars.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I learned that.
Yep.
Of course, we didn't have those, so we used it for like batteries, GoPro, food, my banana Rito.
Banana Rito. Hold on, we got to define that term.
Banana Rito.
Ben takes a tortilla. I think I named it. You came up with what it was.
Yeah, it's great.
He had a tortilla, lathered it in peanut butter, banana, and then rolled the tortilla up.
How'd you do the
Get a little
banana?
honey on that, it would have been
Banana
next
or-
level.
Full banana.
Oh.
I mean, it's like
It looked like just a
burrito.
big the burrito. That's banana Rito.
I didn't know if you chopped it up and did like.
No, banana Rito.
Hey,
Look-
carry
That's not
some
a bad
carry some
idea.
honey with you next time. Be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
Peanut butter banana honey,
Good
little
idea.
Rito.
That's good. Score some on each
I
bite.
did. I have being quiet on here. I already knew this, but like
Ben shuffles his feet a lot.
I can't sit still. I'm not a quiet person. I'm just not.
Ben read a
It is
book.
what it is.
He took a book from the cabin and read the book pretty much the whole time.
And it was to keep me quiet and
Yeah.
still because it worked.
Yeah, it
I
did.
mean,
He's
other than
playing,
that,
or either that or he's playing his glider game.
I can't even describe to people like how hard it is that day we sat for 8 hours.
It was awful.
And like service was in and out, and you're like, well, it's not even worth it. You know, like even trying to do anything, and your phone dies by like 4 p.m. I made a basket out of grass.
He did.
Nice.
Like that. Like, because like you don't really need, like you can see the wallow, right? But you really need your ears. So it's like you just gotta be quiet so you can hear something.
You'll hear.
But here,
you'll
but what was your takeaway on that? Because I mean, back to the start of the like, is there an unsuccessful hunt? Like that's kind of part of it. Is like alone with your thoughts, out in nature with your boys, kind of suffering and peeing in
I thought a
Nalgene
lot.
bottles.
I prayed a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, there were so
read
many
songs.
flies. Every time the sun would come out, you'd have 10 flies on each of us. Just like,
the flies were so bad.
and then the cloud would roll by and the flies would go away. And then they'd come back and go. It was crazy.
What
Going
book
back
was
to the
it?
listening
What book
thing.
was from the cabin?
What's that?
What was the book from the cabin?
Cold Wind.
Was it any good?
It's a murder mystery.
It's all right.
Did you finish
I get
it?
like a 7 out of 10.
Did you finish
6
it?
out of 10. No, I have like 20 pages
20
left.
pages. He took
I'll
the
finish
book.
it
He's
tonight.
we're gonna take it back.
Sam, if you're watching this, I did still book from your cabin, but I'll send it back to you at some point.
Yeah, we'll take it back in November.
Yeah, it's like $7, and I don't think anybody's ready. I think it's just for looks. I learned what antlers sound like on trees. Yep. You know, it's a very distinct, like kind of like an echoey, like hit. Rubs. So that's when the elk will like rub, I guess, their horns on a tree, right?
Either territory and / getting the velvet off.
Yep. Velvet. That was one too in here somewhere. They're covered in velvet until they do that.
Yeah,
right?
You didn't know that they shed their antlers. He didn't know that.
Because that mule deer that we saw on day 2, 1.5 was velveted, right?
Yeah. The mule deer was still in velvet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Smells in the air. We did that. Sign. So sign is fancy word for poop.
Sign is just any sign.
Any sign.
Sign is like pee or poop.
Yeah.
Poop's just usually the easiest thing because it's
basically sign that something has been there is what that means.
Yep.
And it all looks different from a bull elk to mule deer.
We taught you the difference in bull versus bull buck,
up.
and then cow versus
and
doe.
their prints, the hooves, they're like the separated
you got
versus
heart shaped for the females, and then kind of like a side by side, and then if they're big enough, they've got 2 dew claws on the back.
Bear poop looks
Bear
like
scat,
a kind bar in a way, or a cliff bar.
With it does with some berries. Yeah, I'll give you that.
I've heard timbers. That's just fancy word for trees.
Yep. Bigger trees.
I didn't know. I remember like Rich and I was talking about the oak brush. They were like, "Yeah, it's so thick it sucks." I'm like, "What's that?" You learn pretty quick what that is. Aspens. That's the white tree you see everywhere.
Yeah. Or quakies.
Or
quakey stand.
Not because I'm not enjoying. I'm just curious. How long is this list? Because he's scrolling.
We're almost done.
Okay.
Yeah. Super highways. That's just game trails. Lots of animals come through. It's a hot spot. Fort Mayhem, talked about that. North facing hills. That's where the elk like to lay down bed because it's colder. The sun's hitting it in just the not right way, so it doesn't get hot. The arrow is lower than the sight. Because I asked Rich, because he's like, if it comes right here, he's 10 yards out. Rich is like, I can't shoot it, because you just don't know.
Because the arrow,
your sight's here, your arrow's here, and you got to kind of line it perfectly, right, so that it.
Yep.
Shooting lanes, kind of a given. What goes up must come down, as in us.
Oh yeah.
Or
what goes down must go up. Most of the time.
When you start doing those long, like we was talking about, you drop down 800 feet real quick. You're like,
quick. You got blisters everywhere. Your feet's bleeding.
You're you drop down so fast. You're like, it's in the heat of the moment. Maybe you're not even thinking of it because it's in the heat of the moment, and then you realize you go, oh, we just dropped down a lot.
And then can you imagine getting something out of that thick oak brush?
Yeah,
I would have been worth it, but it would have been awful.
That'd be a whole nother conversation. And then we got calling. There's different types of calls. The cow call, the bugle with the means he's threatened. All about that. Raking. They're slapping their horns on stuff.
Can we talk about how you said they clock out at a certain time?
They clock out, dude. So by that I mean, it seems, just from my 7 days in the woods, it seems like they're very active from sunrise to like 10:30, 11, somewhere in there. Based on what we saw or didn't see, after 11, they're done. They are done until sunset, and then like they start moving around a little bit. But to me, I was like, why are we not hunting till like 12? Go back to the cabin, maybe take a nap, get some food, maybe shower again.
Yeah, sometimes it feels pointless.
And then it's like, and then like wait 5 hours and then go back out. But there's always, you don't want to do. No one wants to do that.
Doubles your
obviously.
hiking.
Especially as much as those tags cost. That's pretty much it. The other stuff's just for me, I guess.
What was the other stuff?
Rory seems like he's over my list.
I'm not. I'm just trying to get a scope. But here's what I want. Actually, I hope afterwards we'll pull you out of your list and you can actually talk to me about your experience.
Okay, I'll just do a quick run through then. Bugle to locate, bugle and thumb. I don't remember what that one is. Losing antlers, they do that every year. Tags and poaching, it's not cheap. Your tags help out the conservation, so it's like a win-win, I guess. If you don't get something right, you're still helping out. I don't understand. I misspelled something there. Spike bull. Oh, and they suck. Yeah, because you can't shoot them. It's illegal.
Yep.
And they're everywhere. Dumb. Mule deer looks stupid.
Yeah, they jump stupid.
STOOPID stupid. Because
stupid.
They don't even. That's how stupid they are. And then velveting, but we were talking about that. I guess put on there twice. That's my list.
I love that list. So now tell me, how was your experience?
It was good. It would have been better if we had got something like that second day when we were Rich was just screaming at that guy forever. That was cool. But then after that, it was like a hard like
dive,
you know. And then I don't know. I think 7 days is like a long time to be in the woods for me personally. I think I'm more of like a 3 or 4 kind of guy because when I started losing interest.
I think you would have gotten picked back up if you'd have been with me and Scott and Curtis when we were slow hunting.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about next time is having you go with Curtis and Scott come with me or vice versa on those middle of the days because you don't need the 2 shooters because you're in such close proximity.
Yeah.
And it's harder to have 3 people hunt quietly-ish in the woods. I think you would have enjoyed that a lot more.
Yeah.
Did you get the same, like, did you get amped up, like, when the bugles were happening and you saw the animals and stuff? Did you feel that same thing or not really?
Yeah, that was there.
I know you were there. I'm saying, like, did you like, the way that Rich describes it where he's, like, shaking because it's, like, you're getting
no, I didn't really get that. And I don't know if it's just, like, a hunter thing. I don't know if Scott gets it, like, filming. But, like, I saw it and I was, like, you know, I would freeze because I'm, like, I do not want to mess this up, basically. Yeah. But, I mean, yeah, maybe if I was shooting, I don't know. Maybe I'd get that a little bit.
I get the full-on body shakes.
Oh, my gosh.
Like,
it's ridiculous.
Like, I mean, full.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be, if we're on any type of incline, my quads are just, like, I don't know if I can hold my body. Yeah. It's bizarre.
Insane.
And I can't.
Completely uncontrollable.
And maybe it is more tree hugger of me, but I think just to be in, like, whether you're hunting or not, like, to be in proximity of an animal that size, like, with the bugles are pretty wild.
It's incredible, man.
Yeah, when we were chasing that bull, I was like, man, I feel like we're in a movie because we were crawling hands and knees. And me, Scott, one time like slid on his belly down a hill.
And then I put my foot down to stop him.
Yep. Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I went into it with like a pretty open mind because I've never done it before, and I was like, I don't know if I like it or don't like it, so I just got to see, you know, because everybody obviously loves it. I don't think I love it as much as them, if I'm just being honest. I mean, it's cool, but I mean, it may have been cooler if we'd got something.
I think if we killed something, you'd be 100%.
Yeah, but like if not filming versus going out to hunt, I think I would like I really want to go like duck hunting, you know. Like I looked up a little bit into it and like
why
turkey hunting.
Why'd you go elk hunting and duck hunting is the thing you want to do?
You do it on Nintendo.
I don't know. I just think I'd
chops.
like it. I think I'd like it. Like the pheasant hunt that they went on.
Those,
like
I'm
awesome.
not saying it's not fun. I'm just saying it's vastly different than what you did.
Yeah, well, and I think because they said it's like the social of the hunting, you know? Like you don't have to really be quiet. Which actually you say you don't have to really be quiet for elk hunting.
Yeah, not as quiet as you would think, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, unless you're trying to like stalk up on something, but you actually the more noise you make, it's more natural for elk.
Yeah. So actually, you might want to rethink turkey.
Why is that?
That's pretty still and quiet.
Yes and no, yeah. But it's way more active, though.
But, you know, I'm open to try it, just see if I like it.
Turkey is active, it's true.
So how about this, for the elk hunt specifically? If it wasn't your job, do you think you'd ever go back, like, for recreation? Would you ever go do that yourself?
If it was paid for. Like, if you didn't have to pay for it.
No.
No?
I don't think so. Oh. Maybe if it was, like, for a few days. Like I said, a week? That's a long time.
How about how about 3 days but no showers?
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All
right. I would add, too, that I think the length thing gets better over time, like the more hunts you do. Because I remember the first one we went on, I was burned out after a couple days. Granted, those were way worse conditions because I had that.
Which days? Sorry.
When the first hunt we went on, I was more burned. I was pretty burned out after a couple days, whereas
what was
last year and this year,
I guess what was good
I could
about
stay out for 2 weeks.
This year is that it's when you have any type of interaction or see something, your spirits immediately go back up. Where we had like 2 days in there where we didn't see anything.
Well, I think too, even then I felt okay because I remembered last year that not only can it happen in the blink of an eye, it can happen with no reason.
Yeah.
So you just never know.
Yeah.
So I think this year I was in a lot more positive headspace, which sounds crazy because you're doing something that you want to do, I guess. But it still is like
it's still an emotional roller coaster.
Yeah.
Like you're in such a like, oh, here's like even sitting at the wallow, like if we hear something, you're like ready to go.
This year though, I never got to like, man, this really sucks, you know, until we were walking back and Ben parked that side by side 15 miles.
We're like, hey, Ben, drive the side by side a little closer to the wallow, you know, whatever. And he's like, okay.
So far.
He drove it like 400 yards in the woods. No, sorry, 100 yards in the woods.
I didn't know how close it was to the wallow though. I didn't want to scare anyone.
And so this was last night. We're walking back. We know we haven't killed anything. We're pissed off. And we're just hiking through the woods to nothingness, you know.
I actually have one more thing to add too. So, and I got absolutely roasted for this. I'm an extreme minority in this. Maybe you guys too, I don't know. But another thing too, I just don't think elk taste that good. if I'm being honest, you know? And like they made brats and I'll eat a brat just like I'll eat anything else. It's fine. I don't hate brats. I'm just saying, like, if there's a ribeye,
and then the fact that there were elk brats was even worse.
If there's a ribeye and there's an elk brat, I'm not gonna eat the elk brat. I just don't like brats. I don't like sausage. You know, I just don't like that like soft
meat. If there's a ribeye and an elk meat, I'm probably gonna eat ribeye too. Okay. Unless it's my elk meat.
I mean, it's not that I don't like it. I just don't prefer it. You know,
and you can't compare it to a ribeye. It's
and
like
then
the best
I look
meat
at
you
it.
can put in your body.
I look at it more realistic too. I'm like, man, it costs a lot of money to get that elk meat. That doesn't even really taste that good.
Oh,
you know, or you can go out here and shoot a cow for nothing. They don't move. You know, you don't have to hunt them. They're just right there.
They're just
and they taste delicious.
You know what, Ben? I think your ancestors were gatherers, is why.
Probably.
Because there's something like.
Yeah, no.
There's something like.
Well, it's like, and it's not a knock against Ben, but it's like in Santa Cruz, I had a buddy who came out and I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna show you surfing, man. I love it. You're gonna love it." And we got out there and we paddled around for a little while. I was like, "So I don't really get it. Like, can you explain it?" And I was like, "No, I probably not.
No.
Like, if it's not for you, it's not for you. You know, like,
I don't know.
If it resonates with you, it does."
I just like all I can think about. I've had dreams about it the last couple nights of elk hunting. I'm trying to figure out a way to go back out there before archery season's over. I'm going again in October. I don't know if it's the, Neanderthal in me. Like, you look at 23andMe and I've got like 90% more Neanderthal than most people, it said, I think. And like, I don't know what it is, but there's something in me that like, I need to be out there doing that, and I don't get that here with whitetail is the hard part for me. Like I want to, I want to have that. I want to have that want of like, go sit in the stand and kill. Like
I think you had a good bow kill. It would be different. Like
I've killed a doe with a bow. Like
oh really?
Yeah.
If you had a good buck,
I didn't shoot enough at that point. Like, but killed her.
If you killed a good buck with a bow, I'm not saying you would totally flip you, but you would be like, okay, I could see why people love this so much, just because it's a different kind of hard. It's not as exhausting hard. I love it. So
yeah. No, I just there's just something. I don't know. Just feel like I don't know. Like I always come back to it. Just feels like it's what you're supposed to do or what I'm supposed to do. It just feels right. Like if I didn't have my wife and kids, I would have not come home.
Oh my God.
I would not have come home.
I would be a Neanderthal.
Until I filled all 3 of those tags in that state.
Yeah.
Like
I would be a professional Neanderthal.
and for, someone who loves a challenge, like I think there's probably also something to like literally having a moving target. There's no guarantees. You got to work hard to get it.
But man, I could go back out there tomorrow. If it wasn't leaving my wife and kids, I would be gone.
Yeah. You said
you guys probably wouldn't see me the whole month.
You said your dreams about it. I haven't had any recent dreams about hunting, but I go to bed every night, and when I'm laying in bed, I get buck fever laying in bed because I'm thinking about hunting, like how close hunting season is, and like going out there and picturing where the deer are gonna be and getting that and like drawing back and getting a good shot on them, and I'll just be laying there and I'll just start getting buck fever. I gotta relax.
I've woken up the last 3 nights with full dreams of elk. Full dreams.
I think part of this too that you like about it is it can relate well to sport. Because think about in CrossFit, you can work as hard as you can work, right? You can do all the right things to your capacity, and sometimes there's going to be a competitor that's better than you.
Better than you, yeah.
Which is the same with elk. We had a couple times where, we probably did everything we could have done. We worked as hard as we could have worked, but either maybe we should have taken the higher road and been higher up to that
and
bull.
then part of that to me is luck.
Right,
like you've got to do the right things and you got to have a little bit of luck.
And they're just so smart. I mean, you're in their territory, and sometimes they're better than you are.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
So when can we see it, Scott?
When are we going back?
I mean, for sure in October. But
I had 2 notes about like when you were talking about that one of the bulls you saw where you saw it through some thick stuff and he was kind of moving around and stuff and looking at you. So what I learned about those kind of animals is, and you may know this, but people listening may not. Their eyes are in the side of their head.
Yeah,
and that so you could, when it looks away from you, you think it's looking away from you, but so they are prey animals. They're prey animals usually have their eyes on the side of their head because they're more worried about what's going on around them. And then predators focus towards the goal. And so they look around them, and so they may move their head sideways,
but they're still
and you're like, they're not looking at us anymore. We can move a little bit, and they're just trying to get a different angle on you. So when they move around, they're looking through your camo. They're figuring your camo out, and they're like, okay, that's a silhouette of a person, and then they take off.
One thing that was crazy is when I went up and glassed this higher rock spot. Scott's got a video of it on the spotting scope. It's pretty funny.
I saw.
But when I was looking down at them, what was crazy was, or even one of the times came walking back, I could not see Ben's body. And I could see his red-ass skin. It stuck out like a sore thumb. But even Scott, who's got pretty, like tame skin, stuck out like a sore thumb.
Really?
You couldn't see his body. Even like this colored shirt in the sagebrush, couldn't really
It
see
hides
it.
well. I mean, same thing
And
like
so
when you said about the elk.
everybody
they're
that makes
brown.
fun of me for wearing my eye black,
No,
it actually
really
breaks up
helps.
your face. And so we put some green eye black on Ben, but his Ben skin just soaked it in. Like, it was crazy.
Within probably 30 minutes.
And so
Turned purple.
it actually blew my mind at how well just breaking up your pattern does. Like I'd always, everybody's like, oh, you're wearing orange, but blah, 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 because it's a completely different style of hunting with a rifle. But what was your other note?
And then the thing about their senses, like when you guys said you were crawling, you're making a good amount of noise. Yeah, and they don't get startled by
They
the
just think
noise
it's elk.
because they
as
may
long as
think
you're
it's
making
elk.
cow calls. We're making cow calls every once in a while.
I know they don't trust their ears as much as they trust their eyesight. They definitely trust their nose the most. I think it goes like in that order where they trust the nose, eyesight, then their hearing. So they're like, if they hear something, they might get a little spooked by it, but they don't think much of it because there's animals everywhere.
Right.
And then, but when they see something, then they kind of get on high alert. When they smell something, they're gone. And they'll smell it, and like, there's probably a time where a bull elk smelled you and you never even saw him. It was like
He got up and took
yards away, and he took off. You never heard him. No, nothing.
Oh yeah,
that happens
there's
all the time.
probably hundreds of elk we walked by because you don't see them. Like
they're too far away, and
they
smell
blend
you.
in, and you're not seeing them. So.
Yeah,
man, it's fun. It's frustrating. It's frustratingly fun.
Sounds like a blast.
Yeah. If it was successful, I mean, I would say that hunt would be successful from what you guys learned. But if you harvested something every single time you went, or maybe not even every single time you went, but the first day or first couple days, it wouldn't have what Scott's
if we would have
saying,
sat that wallow the first day and killed something, I would have been like, this wasn't that much fun.
Yeah. Like you wouldn't quit doing it, but you'd be like, yeah, this isn't kind of what we came for. And then Scott, like what Scott was saying, you grow that patience. The more you like it, the more you want to do it, and the more often you go, you kind of, your expectations, you're like, okay, this might take 5 or 6 days, and we may get lucky or we may not.
Yeah, and there's just something to being out in the woods and out in nature. Like the term deafeningly silent, I told Ben, I said, like there was a couple times, like a lot of the times there's either wind going or birds or whatever, but a couple times, and I was trying to point it out to you that like, it would get so quiet that your ears start ringing because you're so used to stimulus that you're just like it's so quiet that it's almost like you can hear your heartbeat in your chest. It's crazy. Do you remember that one afternoon?
A few times, yeah.
Yeah. It's insane. Like you don't know that until you've been out in one of those situations. So there's, just being out in nature, being out in the woods is a positive.
Yeah.
But, man, frustrating. Fun and frustrating.
Well, elk 1. Rich 0. We'll figure out if you can go back. I guess if anybody can leave, if anybody's like a truancy officer or has great knowledge, they can either DM Scott or leave a comment about how Rich can get his kids out of school for 5 days.
You might want to go up and talk to Hillary right now.
And if you guys, if Rich seems like he's a little bit sad, that means he's entered the next stage of grief. Yeah.
And then we have to help him get to acceptance.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're in the bargaining stage for a few more weeks though, just so you know, like
you got a couple more hunts
you
this
bargain
year.
with Hillary.
The only saving grace, if there was no other hunts for the year, I'd be gone.
Yeah.
But the fact that I'm leaving for a week in October, I can't just be like, Hill, I'm gonna take 4 days and I'll be right back. So I can't.
There's no more archery hunts though.
That's true. That is true, Scott.
Scott is the bargainer.
It's got to be shocking. Actually, maybe somebody already has.
On my shoulder.
Maybe somebody already has, but like it'd be shocking to me if nobody's got like a lodge that is like glamping for the wife or whoever likes to.
Will be like that.
And then
we're going to go back in November.
It'd be like that now.
Yeah, but she's got
But I mean, when there's
kids.
entertainment and
She's
there's,
got 3 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like,
Her
hey,
and 3
see ya. I'll be
kids,
back
yeah.
when it's dark.
Well, here was the deal. We talked about doing it next Thursday through Tuesday.
Yeah.
The kids have fall break starting on Friday, so we only missed Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Curtis was going to bring his family. He's got 3 kids. They were going to hang out. We would hunt 2 of the days and then hang out 2 of the days. Perfect, right? Train with Rich. So we talked about turning it into a train with Angelo and giving him a little bit of a discount.
You have to give them their money back.
I know. We can't do that. We have to pay them.
That would be amazing.
Please still come. Please.
So, yeah. man, I had it perfect. And Hillary had agreed to that. She was like, yeah, that's I mean, we can make that work. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, no, we have Train with Rich.
You're going to punish those people so bad.
Yep,
yeah.
First workout's first workout's going to be hunting prep.
Yeah, hunting prep.
We'll be so tired by Friday from the travel back from Colorado.
Oh, and then we didn't even talk about the travel back. The travel back was a nightmare.
So screwed up.
Vail, man, United sucks. United canceled our flight and didn't even give us an option of like, hey, this is when your next flight will be. It just said canceled.
Just a hard no.
And so we had to fly from Vail to Denver. So I'm like, well, Denver's 2 hours. We can drive it, right? So, man, in hindsight, since our flight wasn't till 5, we could have hunted that next morning.
That's what everyone said.
That's what. Anyway. Yeah, Sam asked. Sam asked Maddie. We walked into the coffee shop and he's like, "So are they hunting today?"
So if we would have known that Uber wasn't gonna. So Uber's like, I booked an Uber 5 a.m. pick us up, confirmed. We walk out there that morning.
Not there.
Nobody.
Oh my god.
So United and Uber are on my purge list right now. So then we couldn't get out of Denver till 5:46 or something like that. So Curtis is the greatest human being on the planet, and so we didn't have to rely on Uber. Came and picked us up and drove us 2 hours to the airport. But man, I wanted to. I'm like, in hindsight, we could have hunted those last 2 mornings.
Yeah. Oh, what a bummer.
Granted, we wouldn't have saw anything at those wallows anyway, so it doesn't matter.
We will next week.
Never let it go, Scott.
I just got a
Never
message
let go.
they saying they're not even bugling yet, so
Exactly.
until next week.
But next week they will be.
Yeah. So no, Matt and them are going rifle, so they're gonna slaughter them because they're gonna be bugling and they're gonna have rifles. You know, like not even fair.
Yeah.
All right. Till next time, vegans, you win. Peace.